Joining me today is Dennis Prager, one of the most respected and influential thinkers, writers, and speakers in America. Dennis hosts a nationally syndicated radio show and is the founder of Prager University. Mr. Prager, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a joy to have you here.
It's mutual, Rebecca. Thank you.
So I just love PragerU, and I want to start right there because a lot of our listeners, we've got over 2 million mature Americans that are part of AMAC, and I want you to share with them why you formed PragerU, what you're trying to accomplish, and why everyone listening should know about PragerU.
I've known all of my life that the great problem is not having the right ideas, not having the best answers to the moral problems of society. It's getting them out to the world. That's the great problem. I have felt all of my life that I had a cure for cancer, but tragically, I didn't know how to publicize it. So I've done everything I could in writing books and the radio, and admittedly, those are large audiences. And then my dear friend, colleague, producer of my radio show, Alan Estrin, came up with the idea of Prager University. And his brilliant insight was, let's get these ideas out in 5-minute bites. The amount people can learn in 5 minutes is astonishing. And so we decided to put out these videos. And at this moment, we have well over 1 billion views a year all over the world. And here's the kicker, 65%, according to Google Analytics, are under 35 years of age.
That's terrific. That is really terrific because, you have the power through this forum to change the conversation. And I've seen your videos. They're great. They're on the Electoral College. They're on the decline of America's schools, the dangers of gender affirming care. And I love the history of the Democratic Party. You can find it all right there. So I encourage people to check out PragerU, such a wealth of information. I want to jump right in, sir, and I want to talk about the left versus liberals. Now, you have said that the liberals are not true to liberalism if they do not fight the left. Can you explain to our listeners what you mean by that?
The American tragedy can be summarized in a few sentences. Conservatives vote their values, leftists vote their values, liberals do not. That's the essence of the American tragedy, because we're living through a tragedy, a massive decline in the quality of life of America. And I don't mean material quality of life, though that too. And it is because liberals don't vote their values. They are so convinced that their enemy is conservatism, not leftism, which is 100% incorrect. Their enemy is leftism. And I have a video at PragerU on the differences between left and liberal. I have an article on it, one of my columns I devoted to it. I'll just give a few examples. Liberals believed in racial integration and leftists believe in racial segregation. Leftists believe in all black dormitories. No liberal did. No liberal does. Liberals believe in free speech. No leftist does. My field of study all of my life has been the left. I was at the Russian Institute at Columbia University in the 1970s. I learned Russian to study communism. I went to communist countries repeatedly. There is no example since 1917 of the left being in power, either in a country or at an institution, and allowing free speech. There is not one example. And there's a reason, because the leftists know that with free speech, it's the end of the left. Liberals do not believe it's the end of liberalism with free speech. Conservatives do not believe it's the end of conservatism with free speech. But the left knows the only way they can succeed is to suppress dissent. That is not a liberal value. Liberals believe in free speech. So those are two examples. Another example, which I gave years ago, not just because of the current issue in the Middle East, liberals were passionate in their support of Israel, and the left hates Israel. Liberals were passionate in their support of capitalism. The left hates capitalism. There is no liberal value other than larger government that the left agrees with. So it's the tragedy of our time that liberals don't vote their values.
Very well said, and I think that that's so important. It certainly seems like the left is eating itself in a sense. I mean, it sounds silly, but in other words, the very people that they rely on are sort of useful idiots in my mind because they're not recognizing that the left doesn't, this machine, if you will, doesn't agree with those basic values of freedom. So thank you for clearing that up for me anyway. I find that so interesting. Now, you've personally experienced censorship, and this is something that a lot of our listeners, and here at AMAC, we as well have experienced censorship. In 2016, your videos were censored on YouTube because they violated community standards. How do we as a culture who embrace American values, traditional American values, how do we push back against censorship?
It's very hard. It's very hard again, this is critical. People understand there's no example in history of the left allowing dissent. So if the left has judicial power, they will suppress it. If the left has media power, they will declare everything they differ with misinformation. Remember when people said that the virus, COVID, started in a lab? That was declared across the board, from the New York Times to the Washington Post to the LA Times to CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, NPR, PBS, misinformation. They declare everything they differ with misinformation. They lie because truth is not a left-wing value. It is a liberal value truth. It is a conservative value truth. It is not a left-wing value. That's why they got a Pulitzer Prize, the Washington Post, New York Times, for reporting for 2 years the collusion, quote unquote, between the Trump campaign and Russia. It was a gigantic lie. It was as big a lie as the earth is flat. And they got a Pulitzer Prize for it because the Pulitzer Prize is compromised by left-leaning people giving the prize. And that's been true for a long time. They gave the prize in 1932 to the New York Times reporter who denied the Stalin-induced mass murder of Ukrainians through the Holodomor, what the Ukrainians call basically the starvation Holocaust. 5-6 million Ukrainians deliberately starved to death. And the New York Times denied there was even a famine there. The rot, the moral and intellectual rot of the left is something they need to protect by not allowing voices that expose it any exposure. So they will censor whenever possible. My video on the 10 Commandments, was placed on the Google owns YouTube, a restricted list. Excuse me. If you had any filters against pornography and violence, you couldn't see the PragerU video on the 10 Commandments. So I testified at the U.S. Senate. Senator Cruz, to his credit, invited me and invited a few others, including one of the representatives of Google. And he asked the guy, you could watch it. It is actually on YouTube. Google Dennis Prager, Senate testimony on censorship or whatever. And he said, Senator Cruz, to the Google man, why did you put Mr. Prager's video on the 10 Commandments on the restricted list? And he said, because it mentioned murder.
Wow.
And I felt I had entered the twilight zone. Yes, in fact, that's true. One of the commandments is do not murder. So when it was my chance to speak, I said, okay, we will now issue at PragerU a Google-friendly 9 commandments.
Wow. This is crazy. And it just seems to get crazier by the minute. We see what's happening in our schools, and we see, with the little ones, especially, it's heartbreaking for me. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. It just tears at my heart. But the indoctrination that's happening on college campuses across the country It's not a whispered suspicion. It's like a wide open secret, and they're proud of it. We're seeing colleges becoming so woke in their ideologies that they have turned to resegregation for school events, like you mentioned, graduation ceremonies as an example. Many students are stripped of their First Amendment right. They're shamed about the way that they think and feel. And we're seeing this so much today with a major divide between those who are pro-Israel, those who believe that Israel has the right to defend itself, and others who do not. They call for the destruction of Israel. How did our universities become experts at spreading these toxic ideas? This is really important to our AMAC members.
I am in this odd position of having 40 years of work vindicated. So I admit to people, since I'm very open about my inner life, I have a mixed reaction. On the one hand, I feel vindicated. So that, relatively speaking, is a positive feeling. But it's dwarfed by the negative that I'm vindicated. For 40 years, I have said to people, this is one of my most frequently uttered lines: sending your child to college is playing Russian roulette with their values. The only thing that has changed in 40 years, well, I was at graduate school at Columbia University. I wasn't taught by moderates or conservatives. And I could get into that in a moment. But the only thing that has changed is in Russian roulette, you get a revolver with 6 bullets, but 6 chambers, 1 bullet, and you shoot. And if you bad luck, you kill yourself. The only thing that's changed about college is now the revolver comes with 3 bullets. So there's a 50-50 chance your child will be ruined. It used to be a 1 out of 6 chance. Now it's a 3 out of 6 chance. Very many fine human beings send a nice, kind, intelligent kid to college and get back an a-hole. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's exactly what happens. College makes a lot of people worse human beings. They don't think clearly, and they don't have a functioning moral compass.
That's exactly right. You are exactly right. I personally know people who are experiencing a lot of pain, and can't recognize the kid that they sent off to school with these
That's right. You put it beautifully.
Ideas.
They don't recognize their own child after being subjected to the asininity of the university, where fools are teaching kids to be fools.
That's right. And because the family unit has really been stomped on and degraded and is no longer what it used to be, no longer revered as being something important to really make number one, and that's where kids are getting most of their information. But we've got to get back to basics here in America. It seems like such common sense. And we can look at statistics. We know that children that are raised with both a mother and a father do better. We know children that are raised with morals or do better. But today, it seems that America has entirely lost its moral compass. And colleges have become...
Children raised with a mother and father do better. The left's reaction is that is heteronormativity bigotry.
Right.
Instead of course that's true, it's called bigotry.
Yeah. This is what we're up against. And, these colleges today, they are so overtly liberal. And of course, we're all seeing the pro-Hamas gatherings on Ivy League campuses. They're advocating for the horrific actions of these terrorists. And as someone with a degree yourself, you have a degree in history and Middle Eastern studies. What are your views on the conflict in the Middle East, and what should what should our role as the United States of America be in helping to reach a resolution with what's happening over at Israel? I know that there are so many conflicting views, and it is a bit of a stressful question. I'm sure we could talk for a very long time, but in your view, what should the United States be doing?
Well, so there are 2 separate questions.
Yeah.
I would ask everybody to go to prageru.com. If they want to understand the Middle East, we have between 10 and 15 5-minute videos that answer every single question people will have,
Wonderful.
including the one that went most viral, the first one, which I happen to have made. And it is that one side wants the other side dead. That is the issue in a nutshell. The Israelis do not want Palestinians dead. They have offered the Palestinian states 5 times, and the Palestinians refused the states 5 times. We have a video on that. I didn't give it. I don't give 90% of the videos. We have experts give them in each of these instances. How many Americans know that? That they were offered a state 5 times. They don't want 2 states. They want 1 state with Israel obliterated. That's their motto. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What is the river to the sea? The Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. That's right. Where Israel is. This is the only campaign on earth to annihilate a country. There is no parallel on the face of the earth. Even Russia does not want to annihilate Ukraine. They want to take over some Ukrainian territory, but they don't want to destroy the nation of Ukraine and its inhabitants. There is only one example of that on earth, and that is the neighbors of Israel and their massive supporters in the Muslim and left-wing worlds to destroy Israel and its inhabitants. By the way, in my video, I note, if you want proof, just ask yourself 2 questions. What would happen if Israel announced, we will lay down our arms and fight no longer? And what would happen if the Palestinians announced, we will lay down our arms and fight no longer? In the first case, there would be the obliteration of the Jews of Israel. In the second case, there would be peace. That's all you need to know. What should the United States do? The question is completely legitimate, so please understand my answer does not knock the question. But the question would have been equal in 1938, 39, 40. What should the United States do? Britain and Nazi Germany are fighting. What should America do? And there were people who said nothing. It's not our business. If you think America's business is to avoid all moral conflicts on earth, okay, I admit we can't get involved in every one, but not even to aid the Israel, which shares our values, which is one of the staunchest allies America has had for 75 years. And, sorry, we're too busy because we have to take care of our own borders. That's my column this week. I am America first. I totally believe in that, but I don't believe in America only. That's not moral.
Yeah. And what you speak of, the sort of the moral grounding, my grandfather fought in World War II and the Korean War. He was in the 442nd Regional Combat Team. He led a group of Japanese Americans. And I remember my grandfather, he passed away when I was in my, about 30 years old or so. But what I remember my grandfather telling me throughout my younger years was, how could I not go? When I saw what happened at Pearl Harbor, I thought, I've got to be there. We've got to fight evil. And I think that people are just blind. They don't see the difference between good and evil. And I find it just amazing that there's this blatant calling for the total annihilation of Israel. And it seems to me that, like you said, one side wants the other side to be dead. The pro-Palestinians want Israel destroyed. And I do believe and agree with you that Israel would choose peace over war. And I did hear recently, sir, that you said Nazi Germany is to Germany what Hamas is to Israel. Explain what you mean by that. It's pretty self-evident, but elaborate if you could.
Yes, they both want to annihilate Jews. Neither made a secret of it. Well, it's not true. There is one difference. The Nazis did make a secret of it. They did not film what they did and then put it out to the world. They hid what they did. That's an interesting distinction between the Nazis and Hamas. Hamas wants the world to know. They revel in the butchery of families, whereas the Nazis butchered families, but they didn't want anybody to know about it.
Major distinction there. This is blatant. And I think that there is a very important dynamic that we see developing right now regarding free speech, because we see people, first of all, peacefully protesting is one of America's most unique privileges, but many don't believe that pro-Palestinian protests or rallies should be allowed. But others, even those who strongly support Israel, say, hey, we should allow for these things to occur. We don't want to violate their First Amendment. In other words, I'll fight for you to speak your word, even if I disagree with what you're saying. So on one hand, as an example, we're horrified, right, to see pro-Palestine demonstrators. They're scaling light poles in New York City. They're pulling down American flags. But there's also this right to peacefully protest. What do you make of this dynamic right now, which in my view, I mean, for me personally, I see it's a fight between good and evil. But how do we control what could become a very dangerous unraveling?
So I'll start with the last point. It is depressing that the moral clarity is not apparent to a lot of Americans. This is really bad for America. It's bad for Israel, but in some ways it's worse for the United States. If we have, and we do, a large number of young people who don't know the moral difference between Hamas and Israel, we're screwed. I mean, America, we're in trouble. When you raise moral idiots in your civilization will not last. If people need a selfish reason to teach about the Middle East and the moral differences between Hamas and Israel, that's the selfish reason. If you raise people who can't see the difference, if 45% of young Americans in 1939 didn't see the difference between Churchill and Hitler,
right?
America would have been in really bad trouble. I think everybody would acknowledge that. As regards free speech, I'm an absolutist, virtually an absolutist. You should be allowed to say despicable things, because once you ban despicable things, you will end up banning anything. That's why it is frightening that 45% of college students in America they say we believe in free speech, but not for hate speech.
Not for you. Well,
that means they don't believe in free speech.
That's right. That's right.
Anyone who advocates for Hamas is a vile human being.
Yeah.
But vile human beings have free speech in America.
There you go. Mr. Prager, you have made so many great strides in changing hearts and minds. And what I find interesting is you've had such impact on young people. How have you been so successful changing minds? Because so many of our listeners, remember, we're AMAC, a 50-plus organization, over 2 million strong. How can our mature audience learn from you? Any advice that you have?
Well, I'm a big believer you can learn at any age, and you should learn at any age. If there is any age that you have decided I don't want to learn anymore, it's really time to hang up your uniform. I don't get it. Okay, my father died at 96, and I remember watching him reading the newspaper at 96, and I remember thinking, he wants to be as informed now as he wanted to be when he was 45. Yeah. And he's 95, and he wants to learn, and he was reading books, and that's what people should do. Everyone watching this should watch PragerU videos and learn. I mean, we have one on every president. It's a phenomenal series. It has nothing to do with politics. Most of our videos have nothing to do with politics. They just teach you.
That's right.
The success with young people is remarkable. That's true. And I mean, really young people. We have PragerU Kids. I mean, we're talking now kids under 10.
I love it.
And it's staggeringly successful, and now being used in schools in different states of the country. The left has gone ballistic. The amount of hate of PragerU stuff and the hate of DeSantis in Florida and the governors of Oklahoma and New Hampshire and others that are now allowing, by the way, not mandating. The teacher doesn't have to use our material in the classroom, but just that they would even allow it drives the left crazy. As I point out all the time, why do they make such a big deal when people like me go to a college and speak? right?
Yeah.
They have the kids for 4 years. The left fears that 90 minutes with a Dennis Prager or a Ben Shapiro or a Jordan Peterson or a Dave Rubin or a Charlie Kirk, I mean, the list is very long, or Heather McDonald. They know in 90 minutes we can undo the lies of 4 years. They know that in 5 minutes we can undo a lot of what they have, quote unquote, taught to young people. So we have very sophisticated, wonderful, wholesome, which a word the left hates, wholesome.
I love it.
But the stuff for little kids is just wholesome. People should go and watch it. You make up your minds. Anybody who goes, everyone who's watching and is a grandparent should give it to their children and their grandchildren. It's free.
I love this. And we are certainly, I mean, I'm a big advocate, and I'll be talking Prager you up as I have been. And you're also the author of the best-selling Bible commentary in America. This is something I find fascinating. I encourage people to check out Dennis Prager's store at pragerstore.com. But why did you write these books, The Rational Bible? And so tell us why you wrote those books, and then how does the Bible really relate to our country's founding? Is there, because I know and believe that our founders were very much connected to our Christian Judeo heritage.
Even the founders who were not traditional Christians, who may not have believed in the Trinity as traditional Christianity does, they were all Bible-centered. Abraham Lincoln didn't go to a church each week, but he did have a Bible on his nightstand. They knew that everything is rooted in that book, and especially the first 5. Christians and Jews need to understand the first 5 are the roots of everything. Love your neighbor, love God, love the stranger, the creation story, Adam and Eve, Noah, the flood, the 10 Commandments. It's all in the first 5 books, known as the Torah. I know biblical Hebrew very, very well, and I've been teaching this all of my life. And when I said I had a cure for cancer, a moral cancer, if you will, it comes from those 5 books in particular. But it's very hard to understand them if you just pick it up. It's very hard. So I've done 4. I've done Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And I have 1 to go, Leviticus, which is in some ways the toughest. But they're all tough. It's been the hardest and most rewarding thing I've ever done. And there are 4,000 reviews of the Rational Bible on Amazon. People should read them. They change lives. It's meant to change lives. I mean, I'll give you one little example. When I have very long explanation of the 10 Commandments, which I think are the answer to evil on earth. And I explain that about honor your father and mother, that there's a law to love the stranger, to love your neighbor, to love God, but there's no law to love your parents. God / the Bible, they're not interested in whether you love your parents. That's your issue, whether you do or not. But it is important to honor your parents. Honoring your parents is the affirmation of parental authority, ultimately is the affirmation of divine authority. If there's no hierarchy of authority, you will have moral chaos. And what we have in America is vast numbers of homes are run by children, not by parents.
Very true.
I have come to the belief that honor your mother and father, your father and mother, may be the most important of the 10 Commandments.
And interesting how the left is going after each and every one of those 10 Commandments, really. They want abortion at any time. They want parents to have no say in schools. On and on and on it goes. You can steal up to, I don't know, $700, $900 if you're to say yes.
The entire Marxist ideology is rooted in coveting.
That's exactly right.
I don't want to get wealthier. I want to take away the wealth of those who are wealthier. I covet that.
Very good. So I'm so glad that you've put this out. So important. And another, I just want to mention, because millions have been captivated worldwide by Jordan Peterson's biblical lectures on an in-depth analysis on the book of Exodus. And I know that was produced by the Daily Wire. And I do think that this should be taken very seriously. especially today because there's such a connection. But you, along with other world-class scholars, really participated in that discussion, and I found it so fascinating. What was that like, and why should more people check out that incredible discussion? It's available at no
Well,
cost as well.
I'm a big fan of the Daily Wire and of Jordan Peterson, and we worked together. And it was just a blast being part of that group, doing those 16 sessions. It's a lot of times, 24 hours, because they're an hour and a half each. We
Amazing.
devoted a lot of time to Exodus. I have my own, obviously, my commentary, the Rational Bible, but I love interacting with it. I was much of the time the one Jew on the panel. Sometimes Ben Shapiro joined, and that was wonderful. But most of the time, I was, and these were magnificent individuals. I really got close to each of them. All of us enjoyed each other immensely, and I get so many comments. Oh, I saw you on Jordan Peterson's Exodus on Daily Wire. I'm so happy that enormously significant book is now available to people through the Rational Bible and then the Jordan Peterson thing.
Yeah, the
So
Rational
yeah, I'm
Bible's
very
terrific.
lucky. I tell you, when I was sometimes in there thinking, I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, you blessed lives, and mine being one of them. I want to thank you because you do such incredible work. Mr. Prager, thank you so much. God bless you. God
You do
bless
great
Prager
work
you.
too. Thank you.
Yeah, what a joy to have you. We look forward to having you back with us again soon.
Wonderful.
Dental savings for AMAC members. Are you tired of sky-high dental bills? Introducing Key Dental Plan, your passport to saving up to 60% on all dental care. From routine checkups to major procedures, Key Dental Plan has you covered with exclusive discounts that keep your money where it belongs, in your wallet. With over 200,000 in-network dentists, Key Dental has you covered. Call now to unlock your key to affordable smiles. Call them at 1-800-539-5586. Visit us online at keydentalplans.com/AMAC because your smile deserves the best.